I think we need to do better at not living in our mind and living in the world. I feel like too much of our time is spent in reference to our own thought, in reference to things that we're going through internally, and we allow that to project into the external world and allow our issues out here to be issues in here. And what I mean by that is really, we shouldn't really attribute to self what isn't. We shouldn't allow all these negative external things to really impact our internal being, and we shouldn't allow our internal to impact the external in another sense. Things really exist as they are, and they can only be as they are. And the thing that's constantly changing, the thing that's constantly shifting its perspective is us. It's the way we look at things that allows them to be stuff we don't want to look at. Because beauty and ugliness all exist all at once. Positivity and negativity only exist in reference to each other. So we have to acknowledge that they both exist at the same time. But to say that isn't to say you have to live in both. Acknowledgement of negativity isn't necessarily a negative experience, but living inside the negativity is. You have to live in your own positivity. And, not necessarily in a super delusional way, but in a way that's beneficial to self. Understanding and trusting yourself enough to realize that no matter what you go through, no matter how much you grow or change, it's you that's changing. It's you that needs to have the realizations and understanding, not the world, not anything around you. Because the more you try to demand understanding from the world, the more you're going to feel misunderstood. The more you're going to feel like whatever it is you're in, whatever situation you're in, is going to feel like it's unbefitting of you. And it's never unbefitting. It's just your comfort and your perspective of whatever it is you're encountering. I feel like in my life, whenever I get into new environments, whenever I come into places that I feel are a little bit different or reminiscent of another time, part of me is telling me to like go back to the way I was before in this situation, or this is that and the other. But I feel like it's important when you're growing or whenever you're trying to self-improve to realize when these moments repeat themselves. Because what isn't resolved repeats. What isn't addressed will cycle back. And life is full of cycles. I feel like there's always ups and downs, and it's about how you react to your downs that tells you how soon your ups are coming. I feel like a lot of times we live in our negativity. We live in these negative moments because we feel like they're exemplary of the time. They tell you how things are right now, but in reality, they're just telling you how things have been. They're telling you how you've been treating yourself internally, how you've been projecting your own biases into the world. And when I think about that, I really just think about, whatever you do to make yourself feel good about what you're doing, whether that be disciplining yourself or just coming to a better understanding of who you are through self-discovery, through whatever you want to do, through working out, through art, through school, through whatever you see fit. But regardless, you have to understand that, you know, we can only relax in proportion to how much work we put in. And that's not to say you have to overwork yourself, but to say you have to do things that contribute to yourself so you can contribute to the world. So you can contribute yourself to whatever it is you want to profess into. Because it's not really about how anything is but you. And I don't mean that in a narcissistic or selfish way. I mean that in a way to say that, if you're a person and if you can't express yourself in a way you feel is befitting of you, then it doesn't matter what's out here. If you can't be genuine to yourself, then it doesn't matter how genuine the world is because you won't be there to experience it. And that's what I mean by living in thought, because a lot of us live in our minds. We live in the image that we create of ourselves in our head and how we think we're supposed to be within society, how we think we're supposed to be within every interaction. But what I'm realizing is you really just have to be yourself in order to find comfort. Because comfort isn't determined by, what everyone else thinks. It's determined by what you think, because you're the one that has to feel uncomfortable in the situation. And I find that any comfort comes from being comfortable with the self and comfortable with whatever expression you choose to see. And that's not to say, you can't change the way you express in certain situations. I feel like that's a learner thing. Communication and understanding with everything, including the world, I feel like takes some time and takes some patience and appreciation to truly get to a point where you feel comfortable. But in terms of your embodiment, in terms of who you are inside, in terms of the thing that allows you to express yourself in a certain way, I feel like you have to come to terms with that and realize that, if you love your foundation, if you love who you are inside, no matter what comes out of it, you can learn to appreciate it. You can learn to learn from. I feel like it's when we don't allow ourselves to truly shine through the cracks of our mind and ego that, we kind of get lost. Lost in trying to understand something that we made up. Lost in trying to understand why, this piece isn't working, why I can't fit in here, why I can't fit in there, when we can't fit into ourselves. We can't fit into our own understanding. And that's because we put ourselves too much in a box. I feel like a lot of people need to realize that, who we are and our expression is infinite. I feel like a lot of people feel like they have to fill themselves up before they pour themselves onto the world, which isn't incorrect. But it's the whole analogy of the cup, the whole idea that whatever you're feeling has a bottom, like when we pour ourselves back out into the world, like it's about thinking that there's an end to it. And my idea is that, in some ways the cup is bottomless. There's no limit to what you can achieve. There's no limit to how much you can express other than yourself. Any limits placed on the human psyche are placed by the human. Any limits you place on your mind are placed by you because it's your mind. And we have to realize that it's a tool in our possession. It's something that we can use to our benefit as long as we allow it to be used for our benefit. I feel like our mind runs rampant. People think that, oh, my negative thoughts are doing this, negative thoughts are doing that. And I think that's because we're living too much in thought. We're living too much in a reality where our thoughts are trying to govern our actions, trying to govern what this is, that, and the other. And a lot of times our thoughts aren't always governing. Our thoughts give us ideas. They're not necessarily telling us exactly what to do step by step. Like take a right footstep, left footstep, right footstep, left footstep. Pick up your hand here, do this. You tell it to do actions. You tell it to do certain things and it does it. It's not about overthinking the situation. It's about, just allowing yourself to think. Not necessarily attributing whatever thoughts come up to yourself and realizing that you're not the thought. You're the reaction to it. You're the reaction to whatever it is. And a lot of times I feel like when we have negative thoughts, people have the first inclination to either try to combat it super hard, try to fight it. And I feel like that's what allows it to stay. That's what makes it so present, because it's almost as if by fighting it, we're forcing it to stay here. Because we're enforcing the idea that it's something that needs to be fought. It's something that needs to be cast away super intently because we feel like it's inherent to our character. But the more we relax ourselves, the more we allow ourselves to realize that our thoughts aren't us and whatever it is that we're encountering is not us, then we can just allow it to be, and it passes so easily. I find that in my life, that simple thing has really just made a lot of things more simple for me, or a lot of things more easy, because it's not necessarily about what it is I think, because my mind's going to think whatever it is. Even if I present myself with a negative possibility, I'm not going to live in it. I'm not going to live in that possibility. I'm going to live in whatever it is I see fit. I'm going to keep walking with a smile on my face, because at the end of the day, that's all I can do is do my best and be myself. And the rest of it, it doesn't have to. As long as I'm being me, and as long as I carry the positivity that's within me to any situation, there will be positivity there. Because it's not about the situation, it's about what you bring to it. And it's not about your peace, because peace is a mentality, not a place. Your comfort is a mentality, not a place. It's not some things that make you comfortable. It's about you that makes you comfortable. It's about what you allow yourself to be in. The spaces of which you choose to sort of profess who you are and allow it to be. And I find that when you give that validation to yourself to express yourself in any manner, you figure out the best way to do it. You figure out the best way to interact with people, the best way to do this, that, and the other, because you figure out what makes you more comfortable, not what makes them or the situation comfortable. And once you find yourself comfortable, I feel like people are forced to accept. And I don't mean that in a crazy way. Some people might not accept you, some people will. But what I'm realizing is if you're genuine to yourself and your expression, people really will accept you. Because that's just the way you are. And I find that what really helped me think that is, encountering new people. Like, how often do you meet a new person and you're thinking, oh, I can't really accept who they are. Oh, that's weird. Or this, that, and the other. Most of the time, you're just like, oh, that's who they are. That's what it is. And you have to treat yourself the same way. Stop putting yourself in such a rigid structure, a rigid box, because at the end of the day, your freedom is something you have to give to yourself. No one else can free you but you, because the only thing that you can have in your possession is yourself, and no one else can do that. Your free will, free mind, whatever you want to call it, is all dictated by your perspective of it. At times you can feel like, oh man, I don't have any control in this situation, and you don't have to. Because all you have to do is control yourself. All you have to do is control your reaction, because you can't always control what the world gives you. And what the world doesn't give you, you have to give to yourself, because that's all you can do. And that's what doing your best is really about. It's taking the cards you're dealt and doing what you can with them, because that's all you can. And if you do that, then I feel like you should be happy with yourself. You should be content with that, because you're doing your best. You're putting yourself out there. You're doing what you can, and it won't always look like success. Doing your best doesn't always mean that you win, that you're successful. It means that you're continuing. That you're continuing your effort in being yourself. And there's no effort to be yourself, but you're just continuing. Continuing your understanding in depth, and not necessarily analysis, but curiosity about the world and yourself. I feel like that's what it's really about when it comes to our life, when it comes to anything that we do, because we're the ones doing it. You have to be with yourself in every situation. You have to be with yourself 100% of the time. That's why I feel like it's important to be your own friend, and sort of take a step back from your mind, because your mind isn't you. Your mind isn't you, and it's not you versus your mind. It's not you versus you. It's you and you. It's about using what you have to your disposal and to the best of your ability. I feel like with my mind, I definitely get negative thoughts. I wouldn't want to profess that out to the world that I don't. I definitely do. But not living in them for me just looks like when they come up, I don't really care to give them too much attention. I almost laugh at it like, oh, that's a funny thought. That's a funny idea, because it's a funny idea. You have to choose what you want to put into your reality. You have to choose what you want to be manifested in here. And manifestation, I'm not really talking about what you attract, but what you put out. A lot of times we manifest our own situations by our action, by what we do in the world, what we allow to be real, what we put out here. And if we're not putting ourselves out, then we can't get ourselves out of situations. You can't get what you need to do, and you can't learn from situations unless you're putting yourself fully in there. And it's just about having enough love for yourself to do that. Because of course there are times where it's going to be difficult. Of course there are times where you don't want to do it, but you have to be disciplined in your own love. Self-love, it has no condition. You don't have to do a lot to love yourself. You just have to tell yourself. You just have to act upon it. And that acting upon it shouldn't feel like a stress thing, because at the end of the day, it's what makes you feel good about what you do. It's what makes you feel good about yourself and your standing in the world. Because if you can't do that, then you won't feel like you have a place. If you constantly expect love from the world, then you're constantly going to be disappointed. Because love isn't necessarily something that you are supposed to get from the world. It's something you're supposed to give. It's supposed to be something you're supposed to give to yourself and the world without expectation. I feel like the same thing should be expressed to other people in other situations. If you present that positivity without expectation and getting it back, then it doesn't matter. It's about living in your own positivity, not the world's negativity. Because things are going to be as they are at times, and you can't always wait on the world to have a good experience, to have a good view of yourself, to have a good anything. I feel like if I waited all the time till I felt 100% good, I feel like the world was lining up for me, then I wouldn't be in the place I am today. Because it wasn't about what the world presented me to do. It's about what I wanted to do for myself, and how that led to whatever it is I have in the world now. And that's what it means to live in the world and not in your mind. Express yourself through action. Express yourself through being you in the world, not necessarily having the world inside you. Because a lot of times our problems are all internal. Everything I feel like is internal. The way you feel is internal. The way things are, the reason you desire certain things, the way you interact with people is all internal. And I feel like a lot of times we look for external solutions to internal problems, which is very counterintuitive. It's like we're trying to get a quick fix for something that doesn't necessarily need one. The quick fix is just looking at yourself and taking the time to be you. And taking the time to realize that whatever it is you want, whatever it is that you want in your capacity is possible. Because, as long as it's in mind, it can be in reality, as long as it's humanly possible. As long as you think you can, you can. And that's my whole philosophy about it. That's how delusional, quote unquote, I want to be about it, because it is what it is. And if you have any say in it, and if you have any potential, then why not give yourself that energy, give yourself that positivity? Because at the end of the day, it won't matter. You know, if I try to positivity in every situation I'm in, and I feel positive and I feel good about myself, regardless of how things are, if the world were to end tomorrow, at least I went out being positive with myself and enjoying life for what it is. Because life is a gift. You know, there's so much beauty out here. There's so much to see as long as you open your eyes to see it. And a lot of times we can't open our eyes to see the beauty because we're too busy looking at our mind and looking at our thoughts and thinking about what we're looking at instead of just observing. You know, it's not even about observation. Like, don't observe, appreciate. Just be happy for whatever it is out there and watch everything unfold. Because it's not your responsibility to control the world. It's your responsibility to control yourself. So if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much. I really do appreciate all of y'all. Lots of love for you. Make sure you're taking care of yourself for real. You know, I don't know what the times is, but it seems like a good time, a good turnaround time. I feel like we just need to be more intentional nowadays and more considerate for ourselves. And understand that discipline isn't necessarily just one action, but it's everything you do. Being yourself isn't just doing what you do to feel like yourself. It's everything you are. And once you realize that, it's just about appreciating every expression and appreciating every way you are. Because if you appreciate your foundation, no matter what comes from it, you'll find appreciation. So thank you. Keep being y'all, keep being great.